Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Today on CityCast Houston, we've made it through a major week of news in Houston, and we're going to break it all down for you with Maggie Gordon, senior storytelling editor at Straight Arrow News, and Monica Flores Richart, who's an attorney and education advocate here in Houston. It's Friday, August 8th. I'm Laura Isensee filling in for Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Okay, Maggie, Monica, major news all over Houston, all over Texas, all over the country, redistricting in Texas. And, just kind of summing it up, it would be a soap opera if it wasn't real life. I mean, we've had bomb threats, we've had arrest warrants, we have about 50 Democrats in Chicago and New York and Massachusetts. We have the governor suing our Houston representative, Jean Wu. We have racist comments attacking Wu as a Chinese American. But sadly, this is not a soap opera. This is not a political thriller. This is real life, and it is the political future of Texas. What has surprised y'all with this political battle?
I think the things that have surprised me is how unsurprised I am by some of the ways that it feels sensational, right? It's so real. Everything that's happening is real, right? There's the threat of redistricting. There's our representatives going to other states to do it. And then there's all eyes on Texas. And it's turning into this larger than life kind of thing. It's a little bit of a circus, a little bit of a theatrical circus, right? And I think 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have been surprised by that, but I am not. And so it's not so much surprising as it is just, what is the right word? It's not so much surprising as it is sort of like an out of body experience to see all of these other people from all over the country with their eyes on this, seeing something that we know to be just the way the chaos happens here, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I have to say that this week I've felt that people outside of Texas almost care about this more than some people inside of Texas. Like, I feel like some national news has been paying more attention to this than maybe people in Texas. And I don't say that in a way of like, that's wrong or bad, but just, I don't know, people are like in their daily lives, or maybe we're just used to this kind of political theater. And just to recap, I mean, you mentioned the congressional maps. At the heart of all of this are new political maps, a very rare redrawing of the maps in between census counts. And this is at the request of President Trump that would give 5 seats to the GOP. And it would impact some districts right here in Houston, notably Representative Al Green. His district would be shifted and he would have to run again in the 18th district that was previously held by Mayor Sylvester Turner. And we've talked about that on the podcast. But Monica, I want to get your thoughts. Are you with Maggie that you're not really surprised, or has there been part of this that has really made you stop and go, whoa?
Part of it has been surprising. And for me, what's surprising is the ugliness right out of the gate. The effort to actually remove representatives due to abandonment right from the outset. This is the first quorum call was on Monday, and already we have a letter to the Supreme Court that they were asked to weigh in on Friday after they had the third quorum call. And if you look at it strategically, removing somebody from office doesn't really change the issue immediately, right? You will have to remove at least 12 representatives from office. You will have to have re-elections. The quorum number doesn't change just because somebody's, quote, abandoned, which is the argument. their spot, there's going to have to be a re-election. You're going to have to elect conservatives in districts that are traditionally Democrat in order to get the win by doing it through the abandonment tactic. It's a very long road, and it's not anything that's really a realistic way to get to the goal. And so that's kind of what has surprised me. It's this ugliness, it's adjacent to the goal that doesn't get you there. If Abbott's goal was actually redistricting, it doesn't get you there in any real effective manner. And it's just ugliness. It's not likely to actually work. Kind of those tactics are really interesting. The one bright spot to me is our country seeing our Texas Democratic leadership and really how strong they are in this kind of era and time where Democrats are begging for leadership at a nationwide level. They're really seeing the fight out of Texas. I think that is why it has become such a popular story on the national stage.
I want to go back to one thing that you said of kind of how the response from our Texas leadership has just been really strong. And you called it ugly. And, I would call it like just fast and furious. Like, we know that Democrats in Texas have been using the breaking quorum, like not enough state lawmakers in Austin to conduct official business. There has to be a certain number of lawmakers there. You can't just pass bills with, a minority of lawmakers. And they've been using quorum for over 150 years as a strategy. And so really for the Democrats, this isn't a new playbook. But I think what is different this time is the Republican response has been just fast and furious. As of this taping, we heard from Senator John Cornyn, who's been calling for the FBI, that now he has apparently gotten the okay from the FBI to help track down these Democrats, which I think is just ratcheting it up. And in terms of like what's next, today, Friday, is going to be a really big day. We're expecting another call for quorum. We'll see if enough Democrats have come back. This is the day that the House Speaker has told them to be back in Austin. And Attorney General Ken Paxton has also said that he's going to take action if there's not a quorum on Friday. So I think this obviously can't go on forever, but I think in terms of these consequences that the Republicans have been calling for, Friday today is going to be a big day. It's going to be a big test. One last question for y'all. Where do you think we go from here in terms of these maps, in terms of Texas politics, in terms of how this might impact Houstonians? Where do you see this going from here?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, this is a conversation my husband and I were having this morning, before we sent the kids off to school. And it's, people can't stay in Illinois forever, right? And there is more legislative action that needs to happen. So
flood relief.
Eventually.
Flood control.
Flood relief, right? I mean, I think regardless of your political position on what's happening with redistricting, I think a lot of Texans would say we have to do something to help Kerrville, right? And people cannot just stay in Illinois forever. And I mean, these are our representatives, right? I know them on Twitter. They've got kids. They have to come home. You know what I mean? Something has to happen after this. And I guess my question is, will the rhetoric die down a little bit? I was looking at Cornyn's letter to Kash Patel, the FBI director. And in that letter, he says, quote, "These legislators have committed potential criminal acts." And I think one of the things that is not clear here is, can the FBI bring them back? Can you force these people to come back? On what legal grounds are you standing to say that this is an abdication of duty and all of that? And if we could maybe get people to talk about the legal parts of this and where everyone sort of stands, maybe we could de-escalate a little bit. That, I think, is the only way we can move forward. I mean, how we do that is the cajillion-dollar question, though, right?
Yeah. Monica, you're an attorney. I mean, is that the way out of this?
There's certain things I'm specifically looking for during this fight that are really going to be indicative of kind of broader issues and really kind of dangerous issues. And one of them, for me, is the involvement of the FBI. I think in a normal presidential administration, there would be no question the FBI really cannot do anything to help, because these warrants coming from the Texas House aren't the same kind of warrants like a felony warrant. It's not something that went in front of a grand jury and there's actually an indictment for a crime. These are more warrants that really stop at the state line. And so seeing as this presidential administration tends to ask for forgiveness more than permission, doesn't really take into account a lot of the bumper rails that we have had and that have really stopped other presidents from doing things that are different. It's going to be really interesting to see if the FBI gets involved. And if the FBI does get involved, kind of the broader implications of that. Them getting involved in these state issues is highly unusual. And I think is going to cause a lot of problems long term. And I think to your point earlier, Laura, about Texans not paying attention as much, I see that as well. This has become, I think, more of a national story because of the national implications, right?
And other states kind of copycatting, whether they're other red states saying, oh, we're going to redraw our lines, or California saying, oh, well, we're going to consider redrawing our lines to counterbalance. So, it is kind of spreading to other states.
That's exactly it. We in Texas have seen this before. We saw this in 2003. With the whole Tom DeLay redistricting. I think we saw it in 2021 as well after that kind of fight. We've seen this before. I feel like it doesn't really tend to be popular among Texans because we know at the end of the day, Republicans are very likely going to get their way. And so I think that since it hasn't proven a very effective tactic in the past, it is not so much on the radar. But nationally, what is happening? We know California has maps that they are actually floating to their representatives. There's one Republican out of California, I forget his name, but he had a meeting with Johnson saying, look, you've got to stop this, because they see the real potential of this just being a free-for-all of Illinois, of California, of New York. You'll always have states like Colorado that are a little more moderate that won't go that route. Yeah. But the real fear is that all of the really red and really blue states are going to start on this path, and you're just going to have a free-for-all where politicos are deciding your representation instead of actual voters, which is kind of the backbone of what our representatives up in Illinois right now are fighting for.
Yeah. And really, the voters lose in that scenario. But this story is not over. This story is going to keep on going. It has real implications for Houston. So we're going to keep talking about it here on CityCast Houston.
Y'all, Houston Restaurant Weeks is finally here. The city's biggest foodie event is officially underway. This is a month-long celebration of food and community going on now through Labor Day, September 1st. Almost 400 restaurants across the greater Houston area are offering special multi-course menus for brunch, lunch, and dinner, all at set prices. And here's the best part, every meal benefits the Houston Food Bank, which helps our local community fight hunger with every bite. There are so many choices to pick from with Restaurant Weeks, from classic Houston spots to Michelin-rated standouts. There's something for everyone, so head to HoustonRestaurantWeeks.com and explore all of the restaurants and the menus they're offering. Plus, you can filter the options by what part of town you want to dine in and the kind of cuisine you love. This is your chance to explore our iconic food scene, discover new favorites, and give back just by dining out. Get all the details at HoustonRestaurantWeeks.com to dine out and do good. Ready to have some fun this summer? Well, downtown Houston is where you need to head because they're jam-packed with cool events every day. You know I love a good workout, and downtown Houston has so many free fitness classes. Plus, they have brand new dance classes at Market Square Park featuring merengue, bachata, and salsa. Just want to relax? How about some live music or their awesome movies under the stars? And you can't forget about their summer trivia nights at Treveley Park. There's something for everyone. So grab the kids, the dog, your date, or just yourself and enjoy your summer in Houston's original neighborhood. Here's one last tip. Blanket Bingo is back this month, but act fast because tickets do sell out. Find the full list of events at downtownhouston.org or text downtown to 56512 for all the fun at your fingertips. Downtown Houston. Get energized and revived.
Maggie, I want to go to you because at Straight Arrow News, y'all published a really interesting story this week about crypto mining in Texas. This is Bitcoin. What did y'all find out? Tell us about this.
Well, I'd love to tell you that we found out a lot of things, but the whole premise of the story is that we have a reporter. His name is Keaton Peters. He's a great energy reporter based out of Austin. And he put in a Texas Public Information Act asking for information about Bitcoin mining and its interplay with the grid. You know, locations of Bitcoin mining operations, how much energy they pull, who owns them, all of that kind of stuff. And, to note, all of those things are details that Bitcoin and all crypto operations have to file with the state. There was a SB 1929, I think it was in 2023, that said you have to register all of this information with the state. Mm-hmm. So one would think that information is public. And so Keaton, the reporter, wanted to learn more about what's going on with Bitcoin. For people who, and I'm not somebody who understands a lot of this stuff. So why would we care is one of the big questions. And for instance, last year an ERCOT representative said that crypto mining can draw about 2,600 megawatts of power from the grid, which what does that number mean?
Yeah, I have no concept of megawatts. I should, but
same.
Yeah. How many homes is 2,600 megawatts or what's a...
Oh, you can't even measure it in homes. It's like the city of Austin on an above average day, right?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So our grid is supporting a whole city of crypto?
Now. And the utility company AEP recently announced that they are planning to connect about 5,000 more megawatts to the grid. So that would be like adding 2 more cities of Austin. So what does that do to the grid, right? Who's doing this? Who owns it? Keaton asked. He wanted to find out. And his public information request was denied. And, as someone, I've been a reporter in Texas for over a decade. It's yeah, that happens a lot, right? We know that. But what's interesting is they denied it because they cited terrorism as the reason that Keaton could not have this information, which that is something that, I have seen recently happening. It feels like more and more often. A great example is last year, y'all will remember in Houston, there was a lot of hubbub over Houston Ave,
Yeah, and the redesign, and people didn't like it. And then people asked for records. And then Mayor Whitmire said, no, we can't give you the records because that would make us vulnerable to terrorist attacks.
To terrorism!
On Houston Avenue.
Which, the Houston landing, I was there when this happened. I remember talking to the reporter who did that, Akil Ganesh, and saying, how is this terrorism? How does the concern about this lead to concerns about terrorism, right? And First Amendment experts had very similar questions.
I'm curious, Monica, to get your thoughts on this, especially since in this article, we hear from people who say the crypto mining is going to help stabilize our grid. And then we also have energy economists who are saying that these operations are basically parasites on our grid. Where do you fall on this from what you know?
Well, considering our grid can't even stay stable through a basic storm here in Houston, it's really scary thinking that we depend on power, not just for the comforts of air conditioning, but this is hospitals. This is, critical infrastructure that's necessary for life. And for it to be used in this way, I think is really scary. But what's even scarier is not being able to get information about it. So I think it raises just a lot of additional questions. Crypto is already so kind of secretive and, unclear to a lot of us. And it just adds another level of, what is this thing that's invading kind of our state and our community and our grid, I guess.
Yeah. And my big question, and I wish we had this information of, how many mines are out there, how big they are, where are they, is, because if they're taking power from the grid, eventually you would think that would affect consumers in terms of how much power can we get, in terms of the demand, if there's a storm, also our electricity bills. I've seen some stories from other states where people are getting these really big bills and then they find out, oh, well, it's because of the crypto mining, like next door. And so I'm wondering, where does that fall? Like, are we starting to see that kind of impact? I know, Maggie, is that something y'all are looking into?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's one of the big questions, right? Like, are consumers sort of footing the bill for something that we can't even wrap our arms around, right? And also, I think one thing that Keaton wrote in this story that's really interesting to me is, Monica, like you were saying, so many people are like, I don't even understand crypto, and here's another layer of something that just like makes it completely out of my range of idea. Power plants, which I think we do have a slightly better understanding of, they do release all this information.
Okay.
So why is crypto sort of on this second level of that could be a terrorist threat, whereas a power plant, I would think, would be sort of on that same terrain?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense that we have public information about power plants and we can't get information about crypto mining operations. That just seems like a double standard that doesn't make sense. Another alarming story that's maybe been overlooked is something that Joy Sewing wrote in the Houston Chronicle. Monica, can you tell us about that one?
Yes, it's a story based on something that came from 19th News about the Bureau of Labor Statistics, how unemployment rates are rising among Black women, and how that's really kind of the canary in the coal mine of broader kind of labor implications in our market. Now, it looks like in other groups, the numbers have remained pretty steady. I think Black men recently has increased as well. But historically, these numbers have really been an indicator of how the middle class is doing. There's a lot of Black women-led households. They tend to participate in the workforce more fully than other groups. I think it's 81% participate in the workforce, which is a huge number. So when they lose jobs and are unemployed, the implications to families and households are really very big. And this is a trend they're seeing that tends to show where the general economy is going. So this is important for several reasons. Its implications for Black women, I think, are pretty clear. Obviously, the accessibility to income, but also because Black women tend to be employed in very critical sectors. They tend to be employed in healthcare. They tend to be employed in hospitality. They tend to be employed in education and a lot in government work. So part of this is being explained by the Dodge cuts. They're saying the Black women are overrepresented in kind of the federal government positions, and therefore the Dodge cuts have hit them disproportionately. And so this is something that we really need to pay attention to in terms of the broader economy. We have other things going on in the economy.
Tariffs.
Right, exactly. There's additional tariffs that have come in. So there's going to be pressure on other sectors. I guess I'm a Gen Xer, and I always think about kind of the side hustle. So a lot of times, in the Latino community, when you couldn't make ends meet, you had a side hustle, right? You would embroider, you would cook, you would do little things. But even the inputs to the side hustle, a lot of like blanks coming from China and Temu and the Vietnam, I think, is incorporated in the higher tariffs this week. And we know we get a lot of things from them. Even those prices are going up. And so even the ability to do your side hustle is really severely impacted. So from a personal view, it's heartbreaking to see communities that have fought their way out of poverty, gotten to become middle class, gotten to be able to own a home, have relative stability with regard to their families and income, starting the process of generational wealth, right? Starting to be able to save, to hit these massive kind of roadblocks, these massive challenges to their ability to continue in this way. And so, the implications for future generations, I think, will be very massive if this continues.
I will say, just the numbers are really staggering. What they found was almost 300,000 Black women across the country are out of work. And that unemployment rate is 6%. So that's much higher than other women, other people in the workforce. And it's just a very alarming sign of just how much our economy is weakening. Maggie, any final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think what's really what really jumps out about this is that the increase in unemployment for Black women, I mean, it's happening at a time where the unemployment rate for white women and Asian women is remaining relatively flat, right? Mm-hmm. So whenever there's something that's like a real outlier like that, it kind of makes you think something has to be happening here that is really big. Data varies and things are going to whizzle and wazzle and go around. But when there's one thing that's really moving as other things remain steady, it makes you think, gosh, something is broken somewhere and somebody needs to identify what is making this part of it really just spring out of where it should be.
Need a fun free indoor activity? Well, the Contemporary Arts Museum has you covered with its new exhibition, Out of Stock. This inspiring exhibit features work from Houston teens and was curated and created by CAM's 14th Teen Council. The artwork really makes you think and reflect on big ideas like consumerism and identity. Out of Stock is made by teens, but everyone will enjoy it. The exhibit is running now until October 19th, so head to camh.org to learn more. And don't forget, CAM is always free. I'll see you there.
As a sports fan, I have to confess. Sometimes the game gets kind of boring. That's when I unfold my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and use multi-window viewing on its large screen. Boring game? I'm checking out my fantasy baseball league at the same time. Score still 1-0? I'm replying to emails in the other window, scoring points with the boss. Semifinals finally getting exciting? I'm buying tickets to the finals and booking my flights. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Okay, y'all, we've talked about some heavy news, some kind of depressing news, shocking, bewildering. I need a pickup. Tell me, what is making you smile this week? What is a moment of joy?
I am a quilter in my spare time. I love making quilts. I make them for my children and for my friends who are making quilts. And I'm working on a story that'll publish Monday about this really small quilt shop in Victoria, Texas, that has just really gotten people all over the country to join arms and create quilts to send there that are going to go to people in Hill Country. And this wonderful woman who owns this quilt shop in Victoria has collected hundreds of quilts and thousands of quilt blocks that she and an actual army of volunteers are assembling into quilts that they are going to give to people who, in my mind, quilts symbolize love and safety, and they feel like a hug around your shoulders when you wrap up in them. And she's giving them to people who just really need that right now. And that's a moment of joy that I think can make a lot of people smile.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That sounds like a really beautiful way to show solidarity and support with people who are just devastated in the Hill Country and have a long road ahead. What about you, Monica? What is bringing you joy this week?
Well, my passion has always really been representation, Latino representation, telling our stories, being proud of our culture. I have a TikTok, Latino Legends in Life, and I put stories about Latinos, protests, just, us through the generations. And my favorite thing about the TikToks is people who post comments saying, oh, my uncle was there at that protest, or so-and-so knew Henry Gonzalez, or, that is my favorite thing. So what I've decided to do is in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be coming out with these kind of Latino focused journals I'm going to have one in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to be working on some others. Specifically for women in the holiday time, there's a lot of gatherings, and the women in the Latino culture, and I think really all cultures tend to gather and talk. And my goal is to have sort of a journal that you can use when you're doing your tamale making or, whatever gathering you have, and talk about the stories of the women in your family. Talk about where nicknames came from, memories, advice, that sort of thing. Put it in a journal that you can share among other women, give it to another woman, have her add her little parts to it. And then you have a document in a way that Latinos haven't had, that documents our stories, that really has something you can share in the future, and that future generations, younger members of the family can look at and say, oh, Tia, Gordita has a name because of this reason, or, so-and-so gave her that name. And just so those sorts of stories.
Yeah.
I'm going to be working on a couple others, one dealing with kind of in Halloween time, the spooky, stories that are passed through generations, the Latino superstitious culture and that sort of thing. So I'm going to be publishing that on Amazon, and I'm really excited because it combines so much. We aren't represented well in the media and other sources, and our stories tend to be lost, but it's a very physical way that we can share our stories in our families.
I love that. I mean, when you might push me over to finally get on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I have resisted, but I would love to see these history posts. And I think what you're doing is just what so many women do, is you are keeping memories. You are a memory keeper, and you are inviting other families to keep their memories. And that's what we do. And I think that's awesome that you're finding a way to share that. I might have to get one of those books, because I've been trying to document my grandmother's life. She passed like 3 years ago, and I have this repository of photos and memories, and I need to compile it so I can share it. So thank you for the inspiration. Before we go, I've got a couple of shout outs from our CityCast Houston neighbors. Marlana D wants to shout out the Institute of Contemporary Dance, which just celebrated its 5th birthday. They have classes for kids and adults. And if you want to check it out, they have an open house this Saturday near downtown on Houston Avenue. So go check it out if you want to get your groove on. And Bill C wants to shout out Burger Chan. It's a mom and pop burger place near the Galleria. And he says it has amazing food and oozes charm. So thanks, Marlana and Bill. And if you want to shout out your favorite local business or nonprofit on our show, you can become a CityCast neighbor and send us your shout out. We'll read it right here. So join us today at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. And I want to thank you, Maggie and Monica, for helping me break down the news, make sense of it all. I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.
That was Monica Flores Richart. She's an attorney and education advocate here in Houston. And also Maggie Gordon, who's the senior storytelling editor for the Straight Arrow News. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with 3 friends who care about their electricity bill. And don't forget to hit subscribe and give us a rating and review wherever you listen. It's really the best way for us to grow the show. And if you want even more news and fun happenings to do around town, check out our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, with the info in our show notes. That'll do it for this week on CityCast Houston. Our producers this week were Lizzie Goldsmith and Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editor is Brooke Lewis. I'm executive producer Laura Isensee. And our host, Raheel Ramzanali, will be back next week. Our music is by All the Kimonos and DM from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. We'll be back on Monday when we head to the East End to talk about why City Hall isn't putting safety first on Telephone Road. Thanks for listening. I'm Laura Isensee, and have a fabulous weekend, y'all. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm usually behind the scenes, so sorry we're going a little long. All right, here we go.
You are great.
All right, thanks, y'all.